The big news out of the LCS this week is a sequence of changes from 100 Thieves. First, they announced that they had signed Reaper as their new head coach. Then, they revealed that Someday had obtained his green card as a permanent resident of the United States, which means that he's now considered a resident under the LCS rules. And then they immediately revealed that they were putting their newly vacated import slot to use by importing an LEC mid laner, but not the one all the rumors had been about. Is your head spinning yet? Despite reports that 100 Thieves were talking to Fnatic about bringing Nisqy back to the LCS, Papa Smithy and Reaper went to Schalke 04 instead to buy out Abbedagge. The goal of this move is clear. 100 Thieves are willing to spend big to make sure they finish top 3 this summer and go to the World Championships. It's reasonable to assume the team had a choice between Abbedagge and Nisqy given the rumors that were swirling around. So with the team's goals in mind, what led them to choose Abbedagge? The answer you'll typically hear is that Abbedagge is a stronger standard player than Nisqy. That means he plays control mages and is focused on maximizing farm and converting his gold into damage output, which contrasts against Nisqy's reputation as a non-standard mid laner, specifically meaning a player who prefers roaming champions and utility picks like Twisted Fate and Galio. It's understandable that 100T would prefer a straight-up carry given the performances they got from Damonte and Ryoma during the spring split. Both players struggled to be real difference makers in laning and damage output. Ryoma did manage to improve on Damonte's laning outcomes a bit, but still only went slightly better than even in lane. Ryoma also improved on Damonte's damage output, but his 483 DPM was again only average, ranking 8th among mid laners who played at least 9 games. There was clearly a lot of room to improve in the straight-up laning and carry potential of 100 Thieves' mid lane position, and it makes sense for them to pursue that game plan for 2 reasons. First, the meta this year has featured a lot more control mage play than it has utility or roaming. Second, and more importantly, 100 Thieves have struggled to play through the top lane, with Someday and Closer failing to execute well as a duo. In general, playing through the top lane involves more activity from the mid laner compared to playing through the bottom lane, because bot side plans are more likely to involve stacking dragons, farming, and scaling. FBI and Huhi are a much more stable focal point for 100T than Someday has been, so a straight up scaling mid laner is a more natural fit. So based on reputation, Abbedagge might be a better stylistic fit for 100 Thieves. But here on Run It, we don't operate on common consensus or public perception. We work with data and direct observation. Let's look at the numbers for Nisqy and Abbedagge from the spring split. Champion pools are generally a good place to start. Abbedagge had a reasonably diverse champion pool with a clear control mage comfort zone, with some dabbling in picks like Twisted Fate, Nocturne, Echo, and Tristana. When we compare to Nisqy, we can see a difference, with a more utility-leaning champion pool involving 4 games of Twisted Fate, 3 games of Seraphine, and a Galio. But the difference isn't really that stark, and Nisqy's pool was also heavy on control mages, in addition to things like Lucian and Ryze and even an Aurelia. So we've got one data point in favor of Abbedagge being a more standard player, but only a minor one. Next, we can look at their laning outcomes. Based on raw laning stats from the regular season, Abbedagge had stronger outcomes, but that's a generous way to describe it since they were both in the negatives. When we add some more context by adjusting the laning stats based on champion matchups using Global Diamond 1 Plus solo queue, we see even bleaker numbers for both players in the regular season, but the gap narrows slightly. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When we add in the spring playoffs for both players, which included 3 games against one another, the gap narrows considerably. Nisqy stepped up his laning in the playoffs pretty noticeably, while Abbedagge struggled against Larson, Caps, and yes, against Nisqy too. Nisqy came out plus 86 over Abbedagge relative to matchup expectations in their 3 head-to-head games. Based on this data, and their playoff head-to-head in particular, it's tough to say Abbedagge is actually a stronger laner than Nisqy. What about their damage output? Keeping champion pool differences in mind, we can look at damage per minute and damage share and see that the 2 players matched very closely in actual damage. But Nisqy's DPM represented a smaller share of his team's output, because of how often Fnatic tended to pick fights. The only mid laner with lower damage share than Nisqy was Vito. Champion pool might explain part of the damage share gap, but definitely not all of it. Putting the puzzle pieces together, Abbedagge offers a somewhat more standard champion pool, stronger damage output, and roughly equal laning, while Nisqy continues to be a bit better at influencing the parts of the map outside of his own lane, based on the eye test. The question for 100 Thieves this summer will be whether Abbedagge's minor advantages of style will be more beneficial than Nisqy's existing familiarity with the LCS and with Reaper's systems, based on their time working together in Cloud9. Expectations should be reasonably high for Abbedagge. He's a good all-around mid laner with a stronger understanding of the subtleties of minion wave control, fog of war, and side lanes than the LCS average. but he's not a superstar, and I'm not entirely sure he's going to be enough to push 100 Thieves into the top 3 and send them to Worlds, unless the team also improves on some of the other issues they've been dealing with, which should fall on Reaper. I don't think the team's management really wants to think about or consider what might happen if they don't go to Worlds, so we don't need to dwell on it either, except to say, welcome to NA, Abbedagge. Good luck.
These days, everybody's talking about Wild Rift this, Wild Rift that. And you know what's actually wild? The amazing performance you can get with Alienware computers with NVIDIA graphics cards in them. You can go check them out over at alienware.com/Travis, and you can use Travis10 off to save 10%. Also wild that you can do that. They've got some fantastic stuff, including the Alienware M15R4. We love Alienware. Thank you so much for sponsoring my content, and we'll catch you next time.